Welcome to our Divabetic podcast. I'm your host, Max Zadek, and Luther's former assistant, bringing you behind the scenes stories about the music and health of Luther Vandross to the fans. In this episode, we have a really special treat today. We're going to be doing a deep dive into one of Luther's most iconic wedding songs, Here and Now, and talking about Luther's friendship with Dionne Warwick. Joining me is a talented songwriter and performer, Terry Steele, who's behind the timeless hit Here and Now, and the primary principal writers, you said, Terry. So welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Max. Seriously, this is fabulous. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And I follow you on Facebook and social media, and I always see a lot of Luther posts, and you even do a lot of Luther performances. How did you initially become a fan? Like, what do you remember any one song or performance that just got to you that he has left such an endearing mark on your heart?
A house is not a home. I will never forget. I was, very young, but listening to the radio one evening here in LA. And when that song came on, it was so different from everything I had been experiencing on radio that it just stopped me. And I listened intently from beginning to end. Wouldn't let anything that was going on around me. I just stopped and had to listen. The control, the emotion, the music, the scoring of it. It just wow, it inspired me. It really did. And from there, I said, oh, you know what? I want to do something like that. And which isn't an easy thing. He makes it seem so effortless,
I know, right?
but oh, it's a lot of skill that goes in to singing a song like that or any of his songs. And that just really spoke to me as a young man starting out in this business. I was seriously maybe in 10th or 11th grade, something like that. Ninth grade, maybe.
Well, and it's a coincidence that you mentioned that because that already establishes the link between Luther and Dionne Warwick, since she recorded that song first, and then he remade that song. And so now we're kind of talking about Here and Now, which she's bringing this song to him. I don't want to get ahead of the story, but it's kind of interesting that you brought these two together for us in that song. So now,
Wow.
um, I know you call Dionne Warwick your godmother. So what? Just tell us first your relationship to Dionne Warwick.
Well, I met Dion actually through her son, David, who is also a co-writer with me on Here and Now. And David's cousin, Larry, uh, and I here in LA, we went to the same church. And he knew I was a singer and a songwriter. And I've always, like Luther, loved Dionne Warwick. And growing up, and I mean like small, maybe in the year five, six, seven, eight, my early years, um, my parents were very strict and religious and only allowed us to listen to certain things. If it wasn't gospel, we really couldn't listen to it. But my dad and my mom both loved Dionne Warwick. So that was one of the artists that was playing in my home, around me all my life. And when I met her cousin, and he said, "Oh, you want to meet her?" Oh, sure. So I actually um, went to Larry set it up where I met her at her home, her estate in LA, and her son and I, David, hit it off right away. We became fast friends, and this honestly is like 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, and through that relationship, I also became great friends with Whitney Houston and all of the Warwick, so to speak, family. And we've just had close relationship ever since. And David and I, we're like brothers, and she was just like, when she called, this is mom. So I was okay.
Well, and
I
it's
get to call
interesting
her
because
mom.
yeah, and it's interesting because in the 80s, I mean, R&B was really out in LA. I mean, Dionne lived there, like you're saying, and Luther lived there.
Yes.
So, I mean, you had that, so again, we're establishing how this all came together, but you were not writing this song initially as something you were going to send out to anyone to record. This song, the initial idea, I think, before David got involved, had something to do with someone in your church that you wrote it for, correct?
Yes. And really, that's the shortened version of it. But I was maybe 16. I was looking at my original copyright, and it's like 1979 when I first got the copyrights for the song. And I was in high school. I had written with my first, well, I'd written three songs. The first three songs I ever even attempted writing. One was Here and Now, second one was Our Love, and the third one was um, Forever Yours. And years later, um, I was invited to sing at my pastor's daughter's wedding. And she said, "Oh, I want an original." And so I pulled out Here and Now and let her hear it. And she loved it. And she said, "Oh, sing that one." And
Was that original recording the demo like you and piano, or did you have a band behind you? Did someone produce it, or was it just you a cappella?
exactly, it was myself, and I actually played piano. So it was just a piano vocal. And
Same tempo? I mean, obviously, I don't think the melody changed, did it?
the melody did not change, but it was very slow because I was, playing the keyboards and singing it, and I didn't have much money to demo it or anything. And when I got with David and he heard it, um, he is a fabulous drummer, and so the first thing in his mind is it needs a groove, it needs a beat, it needs something on it. So David actually came up with that signature because the drum is really different on Here and Now. Here and pow, it's almost simple, like what? Here and now, pow.
Yeah, it's so true. And then making me want to listen to it just to hear the drums now. I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean the way it's not a groove on it, but it's pow, pow,
Was that an
moving
accident
forward.
that you played it and he heard it and then I mean, or did you kind of go in with like let's write songs together? I mean, how did like was that just a complete, like let me play a couple things for you? He heard it, he said, "Oh, I went home, came back and said, "Oh, Terry, let me play, you need some drums on this. This is how I would do that if you want to produce a song."
Yeah, great question, really, because what the reason why I even played it for him is that Dionne was um, going to put him in the studio to do demos to get him a deal, a recording contract. And so he was actually looking for songs for material. And so I played him those three songs is really all I had. And he actually, and he'll tell you this, he picked Forever Yours. And when we went to the studio to record it, I brought back then, there were reel to reels, right?
Right.
These big 24 track reels. So I brought the wrong reel. I brought Here and Now. He liked the song, of course. And so he said, "Oh, well, I'll do it." But that's when he said, "It needs a drum, it needs something on it." And so from there, that's why the arrangement changed.
Okay, and so then, all right, so now the arrangement has changed, but the idea is that he's going to report it for his demo. So how did it go from being part of David's potential demo to his mother, Dionne Warwick, hearing it and saying, "Okay, let me bring it to my friend Luther Vandross."
Wow, I haven't told this story in a year. I love this, but
It's great. I mean, it's such an interesting story because again, like, I mean, these two icons coming together, and this is going to ultimately lead to Luther's first Grammy, which we all know he always wanted. I just think it's so beautiful that his hero, Dionne Warwick, played some kind of role, pivotal role in how he got one of the accolades for Luther Vandross.
yes.
So all right,
Well,
so here she is. We're back in this. David's considering doing this on his demo. Take it from there.
and so David and I went in the studio and we recorded it. He sang, I sang. I did some backgrounds and some licks, and we did it. We did the demo. Dion financed that demo, right? So it was at this point, it was a demo with orchestration and um, not elaborate, simple, but still it was a demo. And we came out of the studio and played it for her. And she loved it. And proud mama was actually going to a party at Luther's house. Now, I didn't go, but she was going to, I think he had, maybe you know this, he had movie nights where he would invite friends over and they would sit and watch a movie in his house, something that was still out here in the theaters, that he had this arrangement with the theater.
I have to, yeah, I just have to tell the fans about this because they always want to know about his homes. That was his home on Chandris, right above the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was absolutely stunning. And downstairs, he had converted that into the movie theater, and it was all these upstairs. He had the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, and he had his bedroom and the bedroom suites. But then downstairs, he had the movie theater with the game room with the pinball machines and Miss Pac-Man and Centipede. And it was all these steel gray fabrics and just beautiful. It wasn't like a movie theater like you go into a chair. It was all plush sofas and it was just elegant, personified. And the two things that I really loved were that you never saw any memorabilia of Luther's upstairs, but when you came down the curved staircase to his movie theater, all the gold and platinum records lined the wall, and I thought that was so classy. And the other thing that I always love is that Luther's movie equipment was owned by Rona Barrett, who was a Gotham columnist, and before
Yes,
that by Jennifer Jones, who was an actress, because when Luther moved, he wasn't going to take the movie equipment, so I was trying to sell it in LA, and I couldn't. I ultimately think I gave it away to a film school because I thought it had what what is the Antique Roadshow calls provenance with the history
right,
of
right.
the three owners. But
Watch that
at the
too.
time, no one really cared, but I cared. So I was always like completely star-studded around the LA home because of all the history with it. All right, so she's going to movie night. Now I've set the scene where she's descending the stairs. She sees all the things and she pulls Luther aside because he did have a lot of stereo equipment throughout that house.
Right.
He didn't have
And
a he did not have a studio. People always want to know if he had a studio, and he never wanted to have a studio in his home, he said, because he wanted to leave the house to go record. He didn't want to have that in the same house, which I could understand. So
right.
here she is. I guess she has the tape in her hand, and now tell us what happened.
Well, the way I hear it, she started talking to Luther about this song that her boys had written, and he says, "Oh, I want to hear it." So she calls David and says, "Bring this over right now." And this is, in the evening. Now, I've always gone to bed early. I'm sorry, I have. So about, ooh, maybe 1 or 12 midnight or something like that, I get a call from David. He's at Luther's home, and he says, "Terry, you won't believe this." And I'm sleeping. Now, David and I, we joke a lot. So he said, "Luther wants to record here and now." And I'm like, I'm sleeping. So I was getting ready to hang up and I hear this voice, seriously, I love it. I love it. And I'm like, well, what's going on? He said, Luther wants to record Here and Now. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around the whole thing. And he said, I just want to let you know that I'll talk to you in the morning. And so in the morning, uh, he called me back, David, and he said, because I really thought it was a joke, I just went on to sleep.
I love that.
And when he called in the morning, he said, I'm telling you, Luther wants to record it. And I really didn't believe it until Dionne came on and said, it's true. It's true, baby. He wants to record the song.
But wasn't that a little bit strange for David because it was going to be part of his demo, and now they're kind of, I mean, was there any kind of regret or any kind of thought like, what, should we give it to Luther or not? Or were they just so excited about that they just thought full steam ahead?
Uh, David did tell me that Luther said, I know it's for your record, so if you want to do it, go on and do it. And he would still like, I'll come back and do it after or whatever. David and I talked, and I have to tell a little story that, not a story, I mean, something that really happened. This song, Our Love, uh, when Whitney was recording her first album, I played Our Love for Whitney. In my car, I had a little 280Z X. I don't know if people know what that is now, but and she had just come from the studio and they were looking for songs for Whitney. And I played it in the car. In front of her manager was there, and they played it for Clive, and they came back to me. Now, Whitney hadn't recorded anything, right? And they asked if I would give the song to Whitney. And I was like, well, I'm trying to get a deal. Biggest mistake of my life. And so after that happened, when when David asked me about what should he do, I said that. I told him that little story. And I don't know their conversation on how they settled that, but
Yeah, no, it's
Luther,
interesting. All right. So then, so obviously he agreed to doing, he wanted to do the song. You guys got aboard. Now you go into the studio. My understanding is that Nat Adderley came in to do some orchestration and
yeah,
that Luther actually is uncredited as helping as one of the writers, specifically with the bridge. So was
yes.
there a bridge in the structure of the original song?
No, there was no bridge.
Just it was verse, chorus.
First chorus out.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Okay.
what I call it, then
Yeah,
the tag.
sure.
And Luther in the studio, he that had already done it, to be honest, and he said, the song needs a lift. Um, it's linear. And and this is a lesson that I've learned and I've taken with me about writing. So he said the song is linear and needs a lift. And we needed a bridge, something to a point of exclamation point on the song. And the starting here, starting now, I believe in love. Starting here, starting right here. All that's Luther. And he took no credit. And you know what the thing that, like I was saying earlier when we were talking, when I perform a tribute to Luther, I think about all of that this was a man, a superstar legend at the time he did Here and Now. That was his greatest hits album. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he was well established. And for an artist of his magnitude to not take credit on a song is really unreal. I mean, who does that? I'm just being honest, who does that?
I mean, I think it also points to the whole lineage of the song and her involvement in wanting to help both your career and her son's career and Luther in the way that she inspired him to want to affect people, he said when he saw her at the Fox Theater in Brooklyn. So it seems to me like I don't sometimes I agree like people don't know enough about how they hear these stories about Luther, but they don't hear these stories about how he was such an ambassador for music and how he
Yes,
was such a mentor to people and how when I listen to his duets and you hear how he produces other people who sang duets with him, he's just always trying to give people a platform to show off their talent as much
yes.
as he could. And I feel like, as much as I hear stories about Luther, I never hear the stories about just how he elevated people's self-worth and just made them feel special and wanted them to be seen in the way he saw them in a much bigger way than that. So I think it's kind of I just appreciate you sharing how generous his heart was because I think fans should really know that.
Oh,
So
yes.
the thing that the other interesting thing to me about this from a creative perspective is that it sounds to me like after David came in, you guys were really happy with this song. So to think that someone else heard it, and I'm gonna not even pretend like Luther's Luther, but just anyone, and he could fit in this other part to the song that, of course, we all think is seamless. It had to be incredible to you, right? Because you weren't seeing that or hearing that, and then you come in and sonically this person kind of somehow magically finds a key to go in between these moments and create this much more epic kind of sound, right? I mean, what was that
Yes.
like? Was that just like, wow, I would have blown my ears out.
It was overwhelming during that process. First of all, he invited myself and David to the studio when they were doing the orchestration, when they were laying guitars, and I was in awe and Luther and Nat Adley, Jr.
Hatterley Jr., yeah.
Excuse me, yes, had the score, and Luther was reading the score, and I was just wow. I had been in studio with a lot of artists. I'm not going to mention any names, and you throw sheet music in front of them, they don't know what's up. They're send me a recording so I can learn it. But Luther was reading the score and conversing with all of the musicians and the backgrounds were on there, Sissy Houston, and he was cranking up. He says, "Hear this?" She was at the end. She does a on the end of Here and Now, and he said, "You have to know where to place it." And I was just wow. So I was overwhelmed. I heard things and I didn't hear it. I tell you when I was just blown away for real by the finished product. I was at home once again, just like I was when I first heard Luther. And Here and Now came on the radio. My world stopped. I still, and if I get emotional, I'm serious. This is because this is what effect it had on me and still has. To hear Luther's voice on a recording, something that I wrote lyrically and basic melody when I was a child, so to speak, and to hear the evolution of it and what he added, the song would not be what it is without his voice. It's like this universal, I call it a gift from God, when it all comes together like that. You have the song, the voice, the interpretation. I was in awe, and um, Dionne and Luther, and even Whitney and Sissy. that's the school I come from as far as every song I sing, because they taught me is you just don't sing a song, but you have to, I don't care if someone else has sung it already. You have to make the song your own. You have to find a place where it means something to you, where you can interpret it and make it yours. And that's not changing. A lot of these, oh Lord, help me. A lot of these kids, they think interpreting the song is putting runs and riffs and that's not interpreting the song. You have to make the song, you have to get uh, write the lyrics out, is what I was taught, and get in a place where each lyric, what does it mean to you? Why are you singing that? You have to sing from here out, not just here. Here, you have to think about all this stuff, and that's what those greats, Luther and Dionne, especially Dionne too, taught me, showed me from afar, and having the chance and the opportunity to actually work with them on occasions. Oh,
But Terry, like, what an incredible gift because, there are millions of songs. This song, Here and Now, plays such a special role in so many people's hearts because it was their wedding song. And it's still a wedding song. And I mean, that has to also be I mean, winning the Grammy, I mean, Luther Vandross, lovely. Winning the Grammy, very lovely. But the idea that it's a cherished song that brings families together is one of their, it's part of their soundtrack to their lives and what most people consider to be one of the most special moments in their life. It's just got to be, you say it's a gift from God. I mean, this song has a incredible legacy for you, for David, for Luther, for Nat, and Sissy Houston, and everyone else involved in it. I mean,
yeah.
I think the fans just love knowing how this all kind of happened and the serendipity of how you got just the way that it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
story.
And, like I said, when I was a very young youngster, and I had never really experienced love like that, at 16, 17. I mean, when I first penned the song. And so the song is truly not even about my pastor's daughter's wedding or nothing like that. It's based on the love I saw my mom and dad share growing up. And when I look, the first one look in your eyes, I would look in my parents' eyes and see the love that they had for each other, sometimes unspoken, sometimes spoken. And so that was my blueprint for love and writing about love. And so that's really where the lyric content came from.
All right, here's the final question. Was Here and Now your wedding song?
No. Well,
Oh, there.
first of all, look.
Oh. So it could be your wedding song. Say we got the fans want to know that stuff. Someday it could be your wedding song.
There you go. There you go.
You did see him perform it live in concert, right?
Oh, yes. Oh,
It was one of my favorite songs. I would look forward to that song and the choreography that I believe Lester Williams did for that song. So graceful. I just
yes.
remember all the hand gestures of Lisa Fisher, Ava Cherry, Kevin Owens behind them. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and letting all the fans know about this iconic song that's obviously in all our hearts, and also just to hear how much joy Luther Vandross brought to your life and your
Uh,
career.
my pleasure. And I could talk about Luther all day long because this one incredible human being, seriously. And um, every time I do the show, the Luther Vandross tribute, um, it's not a show that I make it all the way through without crying someplace. It's just that the music is so heartfelt, and there's many songs that I relate to. And looking at the documentary, I've always loved Any Love. I really did. It's just I love the concept of it, the melody of it, and it. But hearing where that came from him just puts a whole nother spin on it for me. And although I have been in love and the whole bit, I still relate to that. I think everyone can relate to a time in their life when, and I think what you said in the documentary just really floored me. But you want any love? It's like you need love. Oh God,
Well,
get
and that has come up a lot, so I'll take one more minute to talk about that. I always love that song. I love the bridge in that song too, since we were talking about the bridge earlier.
yes,
But I just, yeah, it's all about the search for love. And I truly, I do love the song, but again, in the context of someone's search for love and the idea of like what love you would quote unquote settle for, the idea of any love is not appealing to me. It's like
right.
I want true love, I want fast love, I want whatever kind of love, but I don't our love, but I don't want, any
Any love,
somehow kind of lowered the bar on what I think most of us are, what we want or what we really
right?
truly desire. But I understand the concept because, so many other types of love in your life make your life full if you don't have that one soulmate. So in that way,
Yes,
I do want people to know I fully embrace the song. I listen to the song. I enjoy that song. In a 3-hour interview, she got that quote out of me.
right.
For eternity, people will think I don't like that song. That's not true. But at the same time, when you watch the documentary, I think she put it in the right place to kind of explain some of the issues that Luther was dealing with in his life during
Yeah,
his
yeah,
lifetime. So
yeah.
again, thank you, Terry, for bringing that up, and just thank you again for sharing the story. It's all about the Luther fans this year for us, and we just want to make sure they're getting all the stories.
Yes,
And you've got more stories, so maybe we'll have you back again another day.
I would love it.
All right,
Love you. Happy New Year. Thank you for having me on. This has been a joy.
a pleasure.